I've always wondered, can this plastic cube toy match the satisfaction of playing modern video games? Let's find out. This is a Steam Deck. It has 1.6 teraflops of graphical power, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory, capable of displaying 16 million colors. This is a Rubik's Cube. It has no screen, no memory, and only 6 colors. But make no mistake, it's still capable of 43 quintillion different combinations. Now, I've always wondered, what makes speedcubers so smart that they can solve something that complicated in a matter of seconds? Well, normally not a day goes by when I'm not playing video games or messing about with controllers, but for the next 90 days, I'm gonna master speedcubing. But before I begin, I'm gonna need to do one thing. Buy a Rubik's Cube. Looks like they still make the original Rubik's Cube, and this is probably the right one, but hey, wait a sec. This flat 3x1 looks like it might be easier. Let's get that. Okay, so this is the cube, if you can call it that, and it's a fun little distraction. Spins around a bit like a regular cube, but it doesn't last long because there's no special skill required to solve it. Even when it looks all scrambled, you can just fix it by twisting most of the pieces one at a time. On the plus side, my bag is now significantly lighter, and unlike a gaming handheld, I don't have to worry about charging a battery for this Rubik's, slice? What do you even call this shape? I guess we should just buy the proper cube-shaped one, but hey, wait! What's this sensory cube, and why is it cheaper than the regular one? Okay, so the sensory cube has arrived, and I gotta say, this thing is pretty cool. It's just like the Rubik's Cube I remember having as a kid, but instead of stickers, which can peel off and get damaged easily, you have these physical bumps and ridges, which are unique to each side. So if you're visually impaired or just want to solve with your eyes closed, you can solve it without even looking. Well, obviously I can't do it, but I'm sure there's someone out there who can. For the next few days, I followed the instructions that came with my Rubik's Cube, which explains it all in 500 million easy steps. I learned notation like R for turning the right side, U for the up side, and F for the front side. It also had useful tips like remember the URF algorithm by imagining a dog called Fur saying "Urf." This seemed clever at first, but eventually I ran out of variations on dog sounds like roo-roo, and roo-too-er. So I did what any self-respecting person would do. YouTube.com Rubik's Cube tutorial. Wow, of the 500 million officially branded cubes sold over the past 50 years, looks like 75 million people watched this one video. Or more likely, 1 million people watched this same video 75 times trying to figure out how on earth to solve this cube. After watching the top 3 tutorials on YouTube, I figured out that despite there being 43 quintillion possible combinations, for a basic solve, you only really need one sequence of moves. For beginners, the main one is called the righty alg, and it looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. It turns out that solving a Rubik's Cube is pretty straightforward. Make a daisy flower, righty alg about 50 times until all the white corners are in place, righty alg another 8 times to get the sides in place, righty alg about 3 times to get a yellow cross, righty alg about 6 times to get the corners in the right place, righty alg about 50 more times to get the yellow pieces facing the same direction, and then, and I'm not even exaggerating, righty alg about 500 million times until the cube is solved. This method obviously seems borderline insane at first, but once I could do it, I felt that same thrill of finishing an 8,000-word JRPG tutorial and finally being allowed to move around freely in the game. With my fancy algorithm knowledge, literally just 4 moves, I could achieve what I hadn't been able to do for literally decades of my life. I became the local town nuisance, showing up at department stores, solving all the display cubes, and then disappearing into the night. Sometimes even fixing the cubes because some of them had pieces that were twisted, meaning that no matter how hard people tried, they wouldn't be able to finish solving it. But there was still just one problem. It always took me about 43 quintillion minutes to finish. It wasn't good enough. I wanted to be fast, just like the people in the Netflix movie, but I could see that they were obviously doing more than the simple righty owl. Like learning how to do a Hadoken in Street Fighter, I was clearly going to need some better moves. Now in picking up any new hobby, I call this part the hump. It's that hill that you know you have to eventually embrace, but you just put it off as long as physically possible because it's so much easier to stay in your comfort zone and only do the things that you really feel comfortable doing. I had hit the Rubik's Cube paywall, and the price of getting faster? Actually learning the proper method. Once you get past the hump, every hobby seems to have a gateway trick to learn. With fighting games, it's the Hadoken. With a yo-yo, it's something like a sleeper into a trapeze. And once you've learned how to do that gateway trick, your brain opens up in a sort of eureka moment. It all becomes clear. You figured out the secret, but at the same time discovered that the rabbit hole is 1,000,000 times deeper than you expected. And for speedcubing, the trick is called CFOP. CFOP stands for cross first, okay, panic. And darn right too, because you only get 15 seconds to plan your white cross, first 2 layers, then orientation and permutation of the last layer. Instead of one simple sequence, you learn a staggering 119 algorithms. And by the way, most of them look like this. R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R, D, R prime, U prime, R, D prime, R prime, U2, R prime, U prime. Now I know what you're thinking. Hell no, I'm not gonna learn 119 secret codes. But fortunately, the first half of the method can actually be done with no algorithms at all. And like before, you make a white cross. Just this time, you skip the part where you make a cute daisy flower first. But what makes this really addictive is that if you have a piece that doesn't slot in with a single rotation, you get to do a move with the coolest name ever, the sledgehammer. Slotting a piece in, rotating back out, and leaving the piece lodged in the correct place like hammering in a nail actually feels so satisfying that if you take nothing else away from this video, please just learn this one move and do it every time you see a friend who has a Rubik's Cube lying around. The sensory cube I'd bought right at the start was really starting to aggravate me. What initially felt fun and clacky had quickly become sluggish, unpleasant, and, well, clacky. So, time to find a new cube. Initially, the cube that showed up first online was something called the GAN 356, but the option next to it was called a Smart Cube. This is the GAN I Carry 2. At $36, it's quite a lot more expensive than the official Rubik's Cube, but oh man, is it light years ahead in every conceivable way. First, it's smooth and fast, but it also gets rid of the black plastic frame around each colored tile. This makes it so much easier to see what's on the other side of the cube without making a huge exaggerated cube rotation. But that's not all. The biggest quantum leap ahead of the official cube is actually this: magnets. I don't know when magnets started appearing on speed cubes, but oh man, is it the greatest thing ever. The benefit of the smart cubes is this: the app. Once you've paired up your Bluetooth smart cube, you feel like you've stepped into virtual reality because turning the physical cube is actually reflected immediately on the screen. You can get it to solve the cube for you, start and stop a timer, collect analytics about your progress, and best of all, reset the cube in exactly the right way so you can practice specific algorithms without waiting for the 1.4% chance that it will appear naturally. I immediately got hooked on practicing my algorithms, but that's when I noticed something kind of strange. R. Maybe it's just this one algorithm that is suggesting 3 clockwise rotations when a single counterclockwise rotation would make much more sense, but it kind of shook my confidence in the app. So I decided to take it back to basics by learning from CubeSkills.com. I checked out the Speedcubing movie on Netflix, and first of all, if you haven't seen it, it's great. But what I actually discovered through the movie was this guy. Apparently he has a bunch of Guinness World Records and stuff. So when I heard he had a website with a number of algorithms that he recommends, well, I jumped right on board. Now this is the part where a smart, diligent student would spend some good time studying and practicing, but not me. With my newfound knowledge, the first thing I wanted to do was buy more stuff. This is the RS3M. My 3-year-old son started stealing my smart cube and almost threw it in the bath. And at just $10, it actually felt nicer and faster than the GAN smart cube. The only downside is that adjusting some of the feel is done by tightening a screw, and as a giant fan of games and gadgets, not knowing if all 6 screws are exactly the same tightness is something my OCD brain just cannot really handle. My journey just kept getting more and more insane. I learned about becoming color neutral so I could memorize the clockwise order of colors, but after that it just kept getting further and further out of hand. I bought the RS3M again, but this time with a UV coating and a ball cord, and then I got this GAN 12 maglevs, and they're putting technology in Rubik's Cubes that sounds like it belongs more in a Japanese bullet train, and then there's the Rubik's Cube robot. Listen, all of this is to say that I was hoping this hobby would go as deep as the best rabbit holes, and man, I was not disappointed. By the end of 90 days, I realized that cubing had pseudo-slotted its way into my daily life where gaming had previously been. I thirsted for that one last good solve before going to bed. So is speed cubing better than video gaming? Maybe. But ultimately, I ended up using cubing to do the same thing I did with video games, and that's procrastinating all the time. Cubes are just easier to carry around. Alright, I can sometimes get my times to be sub 60, but can I get my average of 5 to be sub 50? Let's find out. Oh, the nerves. 59. Okay. 46, what? Oh, I'm excited now. What is this? Oh no. 101, God, gone the other direction. 49, so close. 56, ah! If I can't do it this time, I swear. Oh no, oh no. Ah! 102! It's gone the other direction. Oh, I've had it with this thing.